Tonight on To The Point, Sacramento has budget problems.
We face a challenge, but it's not an insurmountable challenge.
Why cuts might have to be made.
A dry and quiet weekend ahead, but that's not expected to last long when the next storm system is set to arrive.
California's prized almonds under attack. What's being done to address this invasive species? And later on the back roads, we take you to a town taken over by wild donkeys.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us for To The Point. I'm Alex Bell. Right now, the city of Sacramento is facing a $66 million budget deficit for the upcoming fiscal year. And as we speak, city leaders, they need to start deciding what to cut in the budget. Becca Habegger spoke with the mayor and asked him, how did we get to this situation in the first place? And are layoffs coming?
We face a challenge, but it's not an insurmountable challenge.
Sacramento Mayor Darrell Steinberg says the city's projected $66 million budget deficit for the upcoming fiscal year comes as revenues or income remain flat, while spending and expenses related to things like homelessness and cost of living have gone up.
It's a combination of multiple things that have happened over a number of years.
City Finance Director Pete Coletto says his department projected a $24 million deficit back in April, but that estimate did not include pay raises for city workers, since the outcome of contract negotiations with several unions were unknown at the time. Now, those labor negotiations are done, and they cost the city $45 million, making up a large chunk of the projected deficit.
The biggest part of a city budget is the cost of hiring public workers. But who are those people? They're your police officers, they're your firefighters. They're the people who maintain our parks.
He says the city needs to remain competitive, and even with the raises, many workers could find higher paying work in other nearby cities.
There are not going to be easy discussions and decisions to be had.
Back at the January 23rd council meeting, city manager Howard Chan said city workers deserve the raises they got, but added,
it is also true that what we approved and what you all approved and what we've been discussing over the last several months, we cannot afford. It's not sustainable.
For folks who say, look, the elected city leaders, you're the ones who are in charge of approving these costs. And it seems that under your watch, we all of a sudden had a $66 million deficit.
I'm in my 8th year as mayor, and for 7 years, we've had budget surpluses. And so it's a pretty good track record. And now we have a budget problem.
The council will get its next budget update at its meeting on Tuesday. They have 4 months to make difficult decisions.
Do you think it's possible to pass a balanced budget that doesn't include layoffs?
I do. That's certainly going to be our goal. I don't guarantee it, but I think it's possible.
All right, and Becca's with us right now. The city of Sacramento is not alone in this, right?
Yeah, the city points out San Diego, San Francisco, and Oakland are currently facing similar deficits. And the state, as we reported earlier this week, is now facing a $73 billion deficit.
And city leaders, they do want to hear from the public, correct?
Yeah, they'll be announcing next week a series of community meetings to be held in March. They want to hear the public's priorities and ideas about possible cuts.
And before we go, I do want to ask you, does the city have a rainy day fund like the state does, just for clarification?
Yes, but the finance director says it's designed for a recession. Whether they dip into it this time around is up to the council, but this deficit is not the result of a recession, the finance director points out. It is simply a matter of spending more than the city is taking in.
All right, Becca, thank you so much. Of course, we will keep you updated. And as a reminder, voters in Sacramento will be voting on the city's next mayor in the March 5th primary election. There are 6 candidates. Unless one candidate gets more than 50% of the vote, the top 2 vote getters will advance to the general election in November. We sat down with all 6 candidates. You can watch their full interviews on our website, abc10.com/elections. In other news, voters in San Joaquin County will decide the future of the town of Mountain House. County residents will vote on Measure D, and if passed, it would allow Mountain House to become its own city effective July 1st of this year. A no vote would keep things the same, and San Joaquin County would continue making planning decisions. In other news tonight, 1 person has died and 2 others are hurt after a crash this morning out in Rancho Cordova. It happened around 4:30 along Grant Line Road. The road was closed for several hours, but has since been reopened. It's unclear what led up to the crash. And tonight, we are hearing from an 88-year-old woman who was held hostage in her own home by a woman who forced herself inside. Take a look at this video. The Sacramento Sheriff's Office says it happened Thursday afternoon out in South Sacramento near 6th Parkway and Florin Road. In surveillance video, 88-year-old Lois Fraser confronts a woman standing outside her garage door with hedge trimmers. The grandmother says at one point she tried to get the woman out of the backyard when she took advantage of the situation and pushed her way inside. They say that she grabbed her cell phone, stole her car keys, and then fled in the car.
The sign of the times, just not real safe to be in your own home anymore, so particularly alone, so for anybody really, we all have to be careful.
The Sacramento County Sheriff's Office says 30-year-old Destiny Oaks has done this before. She is in custody and facing several new felony charges. Tonight, new political fallout from the landmark decision out in Alabama. The Supreme Court ruled dozens of embryos are the legal equivalent of children. President Biden says, quote, "The disregard for women's ability to make these decisions for themselves and their families is outrageous and unacceptable." The vice president placing blame on Trump.
When you look at the fact that the previous president of the United States was clear in his intention to hand-pick 3 Supreme Court justices who would overturn the protections of Roe v. Wade, and he did it.
I withstood vicious attacks to pick and confirm 3 great Supreme Court justices.
Trump says that he would, quote, strongly support the availability of IVF and called on lawmakers in Alabama to preserve access to the treatment. And the ruling has put a pause on parenthood for many, but a lot of questions remain about what the ruling does, and here's what we can verify.
Using these sources, we have verified answers to some of the top questions on how the Alabama Supreme Court ruling impacts IVF treatments in the state. First up, does the ruling make IVF illegal in Alabama? We can verify no. There is nothing in the ruling that makes IVF treatment illegal in Alabama, and both of our sources agree. But Katie O'Connor, Director of Federal Abortion Policy at the National Women's Law Center, added that the ruling does contribute to a climate of uncertainty among doctors and patients, and will inevitably lead to many or all providers to stop providing this care in Alabama for fear of legal consequences. Next up, have any Alabama clinics paused IVF treatment after the ruling? We can verify that yes, at least 3 clinics in the state, including the Center for Reproductive Medicine at Mobile Infirmary in Alabama, which is named in the lawsuit, and UAB, the University of Alabama at Birmingham's Division of Reproductive Endocrinology and Infertility, have announced they are pausing IVF treatment. And finally, question 3. Does the Alabama Supreme Court ruling impose criminal penalties? That answer is no. The state Supreme Court ruling is focused on an Alabama law that imposes civil penalties, not criminal, according to law professor Jill Lenz and a spokesperson for the Center for Reproductive Rights. While the ruling that embryos are considered children only applies to the state's wrongful death statute, the Center for Reproductive Rights said it's unclear how that logic might be extended in the future to apply to other criminal laws.
And right now, 2 bills are being introduced in the Alabama State House. One would protect in vitro fertilization. Another would put the court's ruling on hold. The Alabama Attorney General's office also released a statement today saying he has, quote, no intention of using the recent Alabama Supreme Court decision as a basis for prosecuting IVF families or providers. Coming up onto the point, California's almonds are under attack. The new threat they're now facing and how it's being addressed.
Sunshine and clear skies now, but we are looking toward the next storm system headed our way, when we can expect it to arrive.
Plus, we hit the back roads to a town taken over by donkeys.
They are completely wild animals, and they decide when and where they want to come to town.
I'm so excited for this weekend.
Yeah.
It's going to be warm and sunny. It's going to be so nice.
And quite the change from what we've been dealing with for the last 6
yeah.
weeks. It's been like on and off and on and off storm systems, but it hasn't really warmed up. Now we're finally starting to see the temperatures rise. And today we saw a high of 66, the average this time of year 63. The overnight lows were pretty much on par for where we should be this time of year, but we're still far from that record of 76 degrees. Now, we will see temperatures rising, though, into your Saturday, pushing into those 70s. Now, clear skies now, and we're looking at a mix of sun and clouds into the weekend, but otherwise dry and sunny. Now, the winds are expected to begin picking up as we move towards Sunday. Around 2:30 p.m., you start to see winds coming in off the ocean there, southwest, about 9 miles per hour there in San Francisco. But look at the flare-ups there in the yellow area in the coastal range spots. Could get up to about 25-mile-per-hour wind gusts. And then over the Sierra Crest, also looking at some strong wind gusts by Sunday. And that's an approaching front expected to begin moving in Sunday night into early Monday morning, bringing us our next storm system, which could bring very strong gusts toward the Sierra there, up to 50-plus mile-per-hour wind gusts into Monday afternoon. Now, the next storm system is set to arrive into early Monday morning, but whether or not you're going to see any showers in your neighborhood still to be determined. We're looking at trace amounts of rain, if just up to about 1/10 of an inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch closer toward areas around the foothills. But between Merced to Sonora, there you can see a lot more significant rainfall expected. The areas of the Sierra here with snowfall could see some of those levels dropping as low as 3,500 feet. So cold in the early morning hours and some of that snowfall dropping lower. Now, as we take a look toward next weekend, that's March 1st, Friday, we could look at the next set of storms pushing in from Friday to Saturday, expect to bring significant amount of snowfall for that period of time. So the first one, not a big system. The second set, expect to be much bigger. Temperatures will begin dropping down into those mid to low 60s and upper 50s next week.
Next, onto the point, almonds in California under attack, the invasive species taking over. And we hit the back roads to show you the town invested with donkeys. Right now, California's almonds are under attack. An invasive beetle recently discovered could be detrimental to local farmers and their crops. Our Devin Truby has more on the impact.
Growers reported the beetles in September to Sojourner Hall and his team at the University of California Agriculture and Natural Resources Department.
We don't know how this comes, say anywhere from 2% to 5% average damage.
Rajal's team estimates a 1% infestation would be a multi-million-dollar loss for the almond industry in California. The issue, the beetle doesn't respond to pesticides because it hides inside the almond itself. Tunneling through the nut, eating the meat, they lay their eggs on the shell, leaving behind less product and a lower quality that can't be sold at market. It's why Congressman Josh Harder is pushing for emergency USDA funding for farmers now.
Going through every single nut orchard in the valley to know exactly where this beetle is. The second piece is we have to make sure that we're supporting farmers for their crop losses.
Harder also wants the federal government to fund the cleanup because the beetle lives in uncollected nuts on the ground during the winter, which means they will attack the new fruit in the spring. Eradication of leftovers on the ground is the best hope for farmers right now.
And farmers tell us they will have a better idea of the impact on their crop come April when the harvest actually begins. All right, now to an agreement on a controversial housing project out in Elk Grove. The city announced a settlement agreement with the Oak Rose apartment complex. According to the city, the housing project plans to relocate away from the historic district. Under the agreement, the city will purchase the property on Elk Grove Boulevard, then transfer ownership of a city-owned property on Elk Grove Florin Road to developers. All right, you never know what you'll see on the back roads. And tonight, John Bartel takes us over the California border and into Arizona to visit a ghost town infested with wild donkeys.
Below the Black Mountains of Arizona, there's an old ghost town abandoned by gold miners. The prospectors left, but they also left something behind. This is Oatman, the historical Route 66 town that is famously infested with wild donkeys.
You wanna give me kisses?
Brad and Kelly Blake are longtime Oatman residents. They're also the campaign managers for the mayor.
This is Walter. Okay. This is Oatman's mayor.
This is Oatman's mayor?
Yes, sir, elect the mayor.
Okay.
By the town council.
I've met a lot of mayors in my travels, but a donkey mayor? Well, that's a first.
I think you guys have some different political rules than most towns.
No, well, it's just another jackass for a politician, sir.
That definitely won't be the last donkey joke you hear in this story. The shops and businesses in Oatman truly embrace the burro humor.
What does Walter prefer, burro or donkey?
He prefers prima donkey.
Prima donkey?
Yeah, absolutely.
Walter is an adopted burro, abandoned by his mother about 4 years ago. Brad and Kelly nursed him back to health, and now he's a welcome mascot inside the businesses.
Hi, Walter.
On any given day, about a dozen or so wild donkeys waltz into Oatman from the Arizona deserts to take pictures with tourists, and in return, they receive healthy alfalfa donkey pellets, which can be purchased at just about any store in town.
They are completely wild animals, and they decide when and where they want to come to town. If they don't want to come to town, they don't. Oftentimes, they stay outside of town.
Oatman has experienced many booms and busts over the years. After the gold miners left town and left their donkeys behind, Oatman became a sort of lover's hideaway.
Because they were left behind, they repopulated.
Yes, sir. They do a fine job of that.
Oatman had a bit of a resurgence after historic Route 66 was built, and then when tourists discovered the donkey's hidden love nest, they discovered it was also a good place for human lovers to hide.
A lot of people don't realize Clark Gable spent a lot of time here.
Town historian and guitar player Michael Fox says actor Clark Gable and Carol Lombard spent their honeymoon at the Oatman Hotel after they were secretly married. It didn't take long for the rest of Hollywood to find out about Oatman. The Black Mountains served as a picturesque backdrop for numerous movies.
And then in 1961, they filmed parts of the movie How the West Was Won. The most recent film to be filmed in this area was on the other side of the mountain over there at Cool Springs, and that was Universal Soldier.
Are we having fun yet?
One reason Hollywood likes to make movies in Oatman is because of the ghost town feel of the place, and the fact that there's plenty of movie extras.
Well, my gunfighting name is Two Hats. That's because I wear two hats.
Cowboys like Two Hats regularly roam the town, warning tourists about the thieving donkeys who love to steal candy or restaurant leftovers.
Well, once they grab your bag, there ain't much getting it back.
The donkeys of Oatman may have been left behind by prospectors, but now they're federally protected by the Bureau of Land Management, and now they outnumber the people in town. So it only seems fitting that the town mayor is a donkey.
They kind of run the town here.
Yes, they do, absolutely. This is their town. We just live here.
From the donkey-infested town of Oatman, Arizona, I'm John Bartel. Hope to see you on the back roads. There you go, buddy.
All right, now it's your turn. If you have something that you think would be a great road trip destination, make sure you let John know all about it. You can text your idea to 916-321-3310. Next, on To The Point, as we celebrate Black History Month, we take you to the local museum creating space for Black artists of all ages. Every February, we recognize Black History Month, and this year's theme is African Americans and the Arts. And what better way to celebrate than at the Sojourner Truth African Heritage Museum out in South Sacramento? Candace Fred has an inside look.
It's a hidden gem in South Sacramento. The Sojourner Truth African Heritage Museum sits in the corner of the Florence Square Shopping Center.
It's just been so amazing to be able to do this work.
Shona McDaniels founded the museum in 1996. Her mission is to change lives through art education.
What's special to me is being able to work with youth that are choosing the path of being an artist. Put the glue on here.
The museum holds events like this one to inspire the youth, strengthen families, and bring communities together.
Okay, that's Henry Box Brown. And then there's Mansa Musa. He was a great African king.
She says it's also about ensuring representation in the arts.
Because I want young Black girls, to, when they see my art, be proud to be a Black woman. This piece was inspired by my mother and my mother's mother.
Shona fell in love with art at a young age and remains inspired by the story of Sojourner Truth.
As a young lady, I used to draw images of Sojourner Truth.
Born into slavery, Sojourner Truth tirelessly advocated for the rights of African Americans and women.
I want to do something special to honor her legacy.
And she did with the creation of the Sojo Museum. It explores the Black experience, past and present. The walls of the museum are covered with African American art, from paintings to photography, quilts, and more.
Everything that I share on the canvas is coming from my perspective as a Black woman.
Shona has contributed to more than 150 murals in Sacramento, Stockton, and San Francisco.
It means everything to me because often, Black artists are overlooked. There's also been times when I wanted to show my work at galleries in the downtown area. I was told I couldn't show my work because I had these melanated images of Black women. So that's what my hope is, for more of these powerful images of Black people to be in public view.
With the museum, Shona is creating space for Black artists of all ages to thrive.
Being able to celebrate Black artists is just an amazing thing, and it's long overdue.
Now, we love getting to tell your stories and getting to meet you. So if you have something that you think we should be looking into, make sure you reach out to me and the team. Remember, strangers are just people we haven't gotten to know yet. So take the time to get to know someone, especially this weekend. Have a great night. I'll see you later. Hey, it's Alex. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. The To The Point team and I love hearing from you, and I hope that you'll stay in touch. And don't forget, you can always email me and the team at tothepoint@abc10.com, or you can even send us a text message at 916-321-3310.